Thank you, everyone, for joining me for these live internet studies week after week. Just very briefly, it is an hour and a half long, full study, 2 segments. First segment is end time topics, eschatology. And the second topic or segment is 30 minutes. It is kind of Trinitarian type topics. Let's jump into topic 13. This is where we left off. We're talking about Mystery Babylon. We're having this discussion on the identity of Mystery Babylon. We're working our way basically verse by verse through the book of Revelation chapters 17 and 18. And we're using a book by the author Chris White entitled Mystery Babylon. Wow, I didn't bring up the book this time. I'll flash it in for those of you in YouTube land. It is a book that, in fact, you know what? I think I could bring it up here. Give me a moment. I do have it bookmarked in my list here. There we go. Let's take a look at this book cover. It is right here. Mystery Babylon, When Jerusalem Embraces the Antichrist, an exposition of Revelation 17 and 18. So we're working from this thesis. As shocking as it sounds, could Mystery Babylon be end times Jerusalem? We don't mean the Jerusalem of today, although it's likely to be the same location on the map. But what I mean is the Jerusalem that enters into the 70th week of Daniel. Could that be Mystery Babylon? All right, let's jump into the study itself. We're really on week 3, the angel's interpretation of the vision. So let's do a little bit of recap. So last week, in chapter 1. We're going to jump into chapter 2 today, okay? Last week, which was week 2, but chapter 1. Chapter 1 of Chris White's book. What we did is we studied John's initial vision of the woman and the beast from Revelation 17, and we read and focused on the first 6 verses. And we were looking at her garments. And what we noticed is we saw that the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet. And this reminded us that she was basically adorned like a false priest. And when we say priest here, we don't mean like a Catholic priest. Although, an interesting parallel is that Catholicism's clergy models their garments after biblical Israelite priests, right? Levitical priests. So what we did is we went into the Bible and noticed all of the similarities. Well, not exhaustively, but the similarities between the way the ancient priests adorn themselves and how this woman who's an adulteress, how she's adorning herself. And she's presenting herself, among other things, as a queen, but as a false priest. Now, she doesn't call herself false priest, but that's the way that we need to see her. She's holding a golden cup, and it's not full of sanctified blood. It's not catching blood of animals that God has approved of. Rather, it's a cup full of abominations. And she herself is drunk on these abominations. And also, she's drunk on the blood of the prophets, which we're going to read out over here in a moment, and the nations themselves. By the time she plays her part in the last days, will also be drunk on the abominations that she actually is pouring out and causing them to drink. So we saw that she was drunk with the blood of the prophets, which unfortunately points directly to Jerusalem, the only city Jesus says was guilty of killing the prophets. This is also a difficult verse to reckon with because at face value, it doesn't make sense when Jesus says that Jerusalem was guilty of the deaths of the prophets, of the deaths of the righteous, going all the way back to righteous Abel, to Zechariah, whom you slew between the porch and the altar, right? He labels this indictment against them. I can almost hear them objecting. Wait a minute, bub. We didn't kill Abel. That was Cain. You can't put that on us. But somehow Jesus does. And so we've got to factor in that from God's vantage point, Israel is this representative, a priest among all nations, right? That's who Israel is. She's a priestly nation. She has priests within her own order. And just like the priests represent the people to God, then Israel represents the nations before God. And so I can begin to see how this charge of Israel is guilty of killing all the prophets. Well, Mystery Babylon now is charged with the blood of the prophets, meaning she killed them. So those are ways that we can start to identify her. We ended last week with the shocking realization that it's possible that when John wondered, because it says, when I saw her in verse 6, Revelation 17:6, he says, I wondered greatly. Why did he wonder greatly? Could it be because he likely recognized this woman as Jerusalem, the covenant city of God, now allied with the Antichrist? As shocking as that could be, we're making this proposal, this thesis that Chris White is putting forth, that end time Jerusalem could be the seat of Antichrist's religious power for a short time until he actually destroys her. He and the 10 kings that side with him, we read in Revelation 17 that they are going to burn her with fire eventually, likely near the end of the 7th week. But for a short time, he's going to declare Jerusalem as his religious capital. We already know exclusively from several places in the Bible, most notably 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I was just reading it tonight with my my good study buddy. Let me pull it up here for you and show you. Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot. Here we go. Let me go backwards. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4 has Paul talking about, and I'm just showing it to you in a few different versions, but I'm scrolling down to the NASB. This Antichrist figure who opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he does what? He takes his seat in the temple of God, displaying himself as being God. So we might object to the proposal that Mystery Babylon is eschatological Jerusalem. But what we cannot object to is the biblical reality that one day the Antichrist is going to go into the temple. It will be standing at that point in time, some structure that allows animal sacrifices. He will go in there. We don't know to what degree he's going to desolate it. If he follows in the footsteps of Antiochus Epiphanes, he'll pour pig's blood or pig urine, I can't remember which one it was, all on the altar and the furniture and desecrate it that way. Set up a temple in the image of Zeus and declare with his likeness on it, thus effectively declare himself to be God, because Zeus was the state deity, one of the state deities at the time, if not the state deity of the Greek Empire at the time. So likewise, Antichrist proper, the future Antichrist, of which Antiochus was a type and shadow, a shadow. The future Antichrist is going to do something similar. We just read it there in Paul. How will he desecrate the temple? Declaring himself to be God, setting up an image we read about in Revelation chapter 13 as well, demanding the worldwide worship of himself. We also know that the false prophet will find a way to endorse that and force the world to worship the statue, which is the worship of the beast, which is the worship of Satan, right? It all points back to worship of Satan. And this is part of the reason why this is so abominable, is because God's holy city, God's very temple, will be the seat of Satan's throne for a short time. So you can disagree with Chris White's thesis that eschatological Jerusalem will be Mystery Babylon, but you cannot disagree with Paul's statement that Antichrist, aka Satan incarnate, will seat himself in the temple of God and declare worldwide worship of himself, and the world will worship him for a time. You can't disagree with that. So for a time being, Jerusalem will be the seat of Antichrist's power, thus Satan's power. It's a short step from simply recognizing that that is Mystery Babylon in its expression. So let's keep going. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to continue going into chapter 2 of Chris White's book. And we're going to keep going just through a few more verses. If I can time it right, we'll get through verses 7 through 18, where the angel begins to interpret this vision for John. This is really nice when the angel does the interpreting. We don't have to start speculating on our own. So here's my plan for the night. We're going to, number one, we're going to read the angel's explanation in Revelation 17, 7 through 18. Number two, we're going to unpack the meaning of the beast. Remember, there's at least two major players in Revelation chapter 17, three if you want to count the 10 kings. But the two main players are the woman herself, that's the city, and the beast that she's riding. And the beast is both a leader and a system, but we're going to focus primarily on the leader aspect of him. So we'll unpack the meaning of the beast, the one who was, is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit. Number three, we're going to examine the 7 heads and the 10 horns. This is where the beast and the system kind of have overlapping themes. On the one hand, Antichrist is a man. He takes himself in the temple. He takes his seat in the temple and declares himself to be God. That's something a man does. He sets up an image for the world to worship. That's something a man will do. This man, however, will be the leader of a system, a leader of a worldwide nation, a worldwide global power of some sort that will have its tendrils in every facet of human existence if he can have his way, right? He'll be in politics, he'll be in commerce, he'll be in trade, he'll be in religion, he'll be in health, who knows? He'll be wherever he can be. He'll probably be in entertainment as well. You know how the world works these days. Everybody's drunk with whatever idol they've erected for themselves, and the Antichrist is going to have his way and be inside of every idol that he can. He'll probably have his own pop song and everything, right? So we're going to examine the 7 heads and the 10 horns, see what we can glean from what the angel is going to tell us about this beast. Number 4 in our goals for tonight, we're going to see why this rules out Rome as Mystery Babylon. Now, I want to kind of tip my hand early and let you know that Chris White is not opposed to the idea that Rome could be part of the identity of the beast and his system. Just Chris White is rejecting Rome as Mystery Babylon. So when we talk about revived Roman Empire or revived Islamic Caliphate or New York City as the candidate for Mystery Babylon, I think a lot of people, what they're doing is they're conflating Mystery Babylon's identity with the identity of the beast itself. And that's, I think, a mistake that is made on the part of Bible students. What Chris White is trying to suggest is that Mystery Babylon is the city and the beast and its empire are separate entities. And therefore, when we talk about Rome, Rome doesn't seem to fit the bill as Mystery Babylon, but a revived Roman Empire, that could work. All right. And then point number 5, we'll look at how the Antichrist eventually turns against the harlot city, right? Which even in and of itself proves that kind of logically speaking, it proves that Mystery Babylon can't be Rome, because that would be Rome turning on its own revived empire, right? That would be really weird if the capital city of the revived Roman Empire, aka Rome, turned, or the Vatican City, or wherever you guys think it is, right? If that capital city turned on its own empire, or the opposite, the empire turned on its own capital city, right? It'd be like Americans storming the White House and burning down Washington, D.C. To what end, right? I'm not sure why that would have to be the case. Now, don't put it past me again. Some of this is speculation, so I could be wrong. Maybe Mystery Babylon is Rome, and then the revived Roman Empire decides to cannibalize its own city. Okay, I don't think so. All right, so as we work our way down through these points, we're going to find that this is where the picture becomes much clearer and much darker at the same time. All right, let's turn to basically part 1, which I've labeled a kind of a reading of Revelation 17, 7 through 18. And I've labeled in my notes here, I'm estimating that this should take me about 10 to 12 minutes to read down through these. and then go back and look at the details. So let's read the rest of Revelation 17 together, verses 7 through 18. We'll start with 7 and 8 first. Okay. All right. So we're starting in Revelation 17. We're going to start in verse 7. We're going to read 7 and 8 first, right? So Revelation 17:7. This is the NASB version of the Bible, as you can see on your screen right now. It reads, "And the angel said to me," this is great. The angel is interpreting what John just saw. "The angel said to me, why do you wonder?" Remember, John said, "I wondered greatly." Last part of verse 7. I wondered greatly when he saw this. The angel says, "Why do you wonder? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns." And then verse 8, the angel says, "The beast that you saw." Now this is interesting. Let me back up. In the previous verse, he says, "I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has a head." But then the first thing out of his mouth is the beast. He doesn't say the woman, right? He decides, I'm going to save the woman for last. Let me start with the beast underneath her. All right. Don't know why the angel did that, but that's his prerogative. "The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to come up out of the abyss." Now that's cryptic, but we're going to unpack it tonight. "And this beast is going to go to destruction." And he continues, "And those who live on the earth," this is a kind of a technical term in the book of Revelation, the earth dwellers. It refers to those whose names are not, we're going to see here, those whose names, the angel says, have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. So it's referring to unsaved people, right? These will do what? They will wonder when they see the beast, that he was and is not and will come. Now, those of you who are astute Bible students, those Bereans out there, you should be instantly recognizing the counterfeit language that the Antichrist, the beast, is given by the angel when it talks about that he was and is not and will come. This is reminiscent of Yeshua's own statement that I am the one who was and is not, the one who was and is to come, right? The one who lived and died and resurrected. So keep that motif in mind as we're working our way down through these details about this particular Antichrist. In fact, it's one of the first things that I bring out in my little essay here. Here we see the counterfeit resurrection of the Antichrist. He mimics the death and resurrection of Christ, deceiving the world into worshiping him. This is very important because when we go back to Revelation chapter 13, which we aren't studying verse by verse, but you need to go back and read it on your own. It's where we're first introduced to this beast that rises out of the sea, this Antichrist figure, which is also a world system, right? The beast is both a man and a king and a system, right? And in some way he's actually the dragon. He's Satan himself, right? He's all of these things wrapped up together, depending on which part of the prophecy is in question, is under examination. He's either being described as a man or as a kingdom. But point is, he seems to find it necessary to imitate Messiah's death, resurrection, so that he can fool the people as being either Jesus himself or finishing the work that Jesus began, right? So what I'm saying is Antichrist will either be in place of Messiah, he will either oppose Messiah, or he will claim to be Jesus himself, something to that effect. Hard to say exactly which one he's going to do. Different people might even see him different ways. I can imagine there'll be a whole group of people who say, it's Jesus. Another group of people saying, no, it's Messiah. Another group of people saying, no, it's another one of the Messiahs. You know how the world religions work today. They all just kind of overlap different images and shadows and types of figures that they deem important. And in the end, in the name of ecumenical inclusiveness, we kind of blend everything together and allow for all of those views to kind of coexist at the same time. But one thing that's certain is that even if this Antichrist figure doesn't really die and resurrect, because we know that only God has the power to resurrect, one thing is certain, the world will believe that he does. So it's kind of a moot point whether he truly resurrects or whether he fakes a death and resurrection. The world's reaction is already told. It's already mentioned in the Bible that they are going to worship him. Go back to Revelation chapter 13 and pick up where it seems to connect those two themes, that his resurrection results in the worldwide worship. So he mimics the death. I'm of the impression that it is a real death and resurrection, and it's because God himself allows it, which is part of what I believe Paul talked about as the great deception that God pours out on the world who refuse to embrace the truth. Let's keep reading through Revelation. Let's now read verse 9 through 11. All right, John continues. Here's the mind which has wisdom, the angel says. The 7 heads are 7 mountains upon which the woman sits. And then verse 10, let's see, how far did I say I was going to go? To 11. All right. Verse 10 says, speaking of the 7 heads and the 7 mountains, and they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come, and when he comes, he must remain a little while. Notice it's using language that's definitely indicative of a human. We'll parse that. We'll flesh that out in a bit, pun intended. Verse 11, the beast which was and is not is himself also an 8th and is one of the 7, and he goes to destruction. All right, that's as far as we're going to read at the moment. All right, let's go back and see what we can glean from what we just read. Now, I think that this is crucial. I could be wrong, but just listen up. The text plainly says the heads are kings. So let's unpack that in a moment. All right, so I'm kind of teasing you right now. Let's continue reading the next 2 verses, 12 through 14. Let's read those now. The 10 horns, the angel says, which you saw, are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. Very short time. We're not sure exactly why. I'm of the impression that it could indicate either the last 3.5 years, or it could just be a physical 1 hour that they have power. But I don't think that means that they have no power prior to that. I just think that they are going to be perhaps promoted in some way at the time of the end when the Antichrist needs to call upon them, and that's why it says they kind of receive this authority. They've received authority as kings, but this doesn't really indicate that they're not kings prior to that. But either way, the angel continues in verse 13 and says, these, speaking of those 10 kings, they have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. And we also know from reading earlier in Revelation 13 that the beast gets his power from Satan. So in the end, this is going to be one big Luciferian machine that's driving this last final beast empire, this 8th beast empire. Actually, I'm of the impression that the 7th beast empire also hasn't existed yet. The 7th beast empire will come on the world scene to some degree, led by the Antichrist. He's that 7th head, and then he gets assassinated, comes back to life, and then that coming back to life turns him into the 8th leader of his own 8th empire, which is probably maybe the 2 sides of his career in the 70th week of Daniel. Maybe the first half could be more of a kind of a religious, benign, peaceful type of ruler, Messiah type of figure, but not declaring himself to be deity yet, not declaring himself to be God. He's not going to do that until the midpoint of the week, when he takes the mask off and reveals who he truly is. I think that's when Satan enters into him fully, and he becomes basically Satan incarnate. But the point I'm trying to speculate on right now, and I admit it is speculation, is that the first half of his career could be, indicate, or it could be characterized by more peace-going activities, animal sacrifices in Israel, someone that they recognize as their Messiah figure, perhaps very strongly political, but also religiously in favor of Israel and Jerusalem enjoying a preeminent place in the first half of the 70th week. What will that look like for the rest of the world? I think largely a measure of peace, but there will still be wars around the world because he'll have his opposition, people that oppose him. Where will Islam be at that point in time? Maybe they will be subjected at that point in time. Maybe they will be defeated. Maybe they'll be subjugated. Maybe they will be blended into a syncretistic form of Middle Eastern religion that includes Abrahamic faith, open and broad enough to allow for animal sacrifices along with Islam right there on the Temple Mount. I mean, that's a tall order, I know. But either way, the second half of the 70th week seems to be that when the eighth beast empire post-resurrection, Antichrist, will rule the world, and that's when he rules with an iron fist, like Thanos in the Avengers, right? He's got the golden glove on, that goblet, or not goblet, I'm sorry, that golden, the glove, what was that thing called? He's got all the infinity stones on it. He's like, I'm ruler, right? I've got all the power. I'm holding all the cards. That's when he's like, worship me, like I said last week. All right. So these 10 kings at that point in time are going to be like, yes, we worship you, oh great and mighty political ruler and religious ruler or whatever. We worship you. They're going to give their purpose and power and authority to the beast. So let's go down into this one, and I'm sorry, we need to read 12 through 14. I stopped short. I said 13. So we read about these 10 kings, and they're going to worship the beast. Also, they're going to give their power and authority to the beast. But what does the angel say, right? My Bible heading is Victory for the Lamb. Well, they are going to wage war against the Lamb. But the Lamb, we know to be Jesus, he's going to overcome them. Why? Because he's Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And those who are with him are the called and chosen and faithful. FYI, as a side note, I used to kind of waffle back and forth on the notion that the saints will return from heaven with Yeshua on horses at the Battle of Armageddon. I used to kind of toy with the idea that, well, the Bible doesn't say in so many words that the Christians are going to come with him into battle. But this verse here is fairly close to really outright saying that without just outright saying it. We know that there's going to be a war against Yeshua fought in the Middle East in an area that is recognized by the Bible as Armageddon or Har Megiddo, the Valley of Megiddo, and the mountain of the Valley of Megiddo, which, where in the world is that, right? 20 miles northwest of Jerusalem these days. But they're going to battle against Yeshua, and he's going to, of course, overcome them. But notice it says those who are with him are the called and chosen and faithful. I think that called and chosen and faithful is, if we were to look up the Greek, we'll see that it's talking about these are the elect, is one of the Greek words there, the chosen there, the eklektos, if I remember. And these are what John recognizes elsewhere in his book as Christians. So I don't think these are angels. But it says those who are with them. Does this mean with him in battle? It could be. All right, let's go back to my notes here. So let's talk about the 10 kings for a minute. I already kind of hinted at this. The 10 kings form what appears to be a temporary alliance with the Antichrist, some type of political or military alliance. They give him their power, but Christ will ultimately defeat them. We're kind of working our way through just these snippets quickly, but we're going to unpack it in the other parts here, so don't worry if you think I'm going too fast. We're about 30 minutes into the study, And at this point in time, it will probably represent in my video files a good place to break week 3 into part A, and we'll continue looking at part B with the reading of Revelation 17, 15 through 18. Okay, so stay tuned.